This was sent in by Logan Rose yesterday on the live stream, but after we had departed the live stream, so we didn't see it. He tagged us on Twitter, so we're going to get to it now. Former Penguins general manager Jim Rutherford, if you're not paying attention to what's happening in Vancouver, GMJR has a problem on his hands, right? There's a lot of tension between two of his highest paid superstars, and it feels like this town ain't big enough for the both of us situation going on up in Vancouver. So Logan Rose wants to know, how do you guys feel about this trade to Pittsburgh? Elias Pettersson and Nils Hoglander to Vancouver. Marcus Pettersson, Drew O'Connor, Sam Poulin finds his way into this mock trade. Another veteran or a draft pick. What do you think about that trade?
I think it would have to be a draft pick. Pettersson's not going cheap. He's not going to. And by Pettersson, I do mean Elias Pettersson.
Yeah.
I do love the idea of a Pettersson for Pettersson trade. Just hilarious stuff. You know what? Why not? Let's take both Elias Petterssons. Could use a defenseman on this team. It would have to be a draft pick, I'd assume. It's a lot of pieces.
It'd have to be a pretty high draft pick. I mean, I know Marcus Pettersson we're saying is going to have a lot of value, but Elias Pettersson comes over with a 100-point, 30-goal pedigree, not to mention a lot of security for a 26-year-old center who has, I believe, 7 years left on his contract at $11+ million.
He just signed that deal
last March.
Yeah, he's in the first year of an 8-year contract that makes him $11.6 million annually.
Yeah.
Not an easy deal to move. It is the one and only year that doesn't have trade protection on it. Almost like they knew something like this was going to come. But it's a tough deal to make regardless of who's involved. It would have to be the draft pick, not a veteran player or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
Throwing in Nils Hoglander, I get he's sort of a throw-in and the kind of player that the Penguins are looking for. I would be curious to see if that's how this trade would be pulled off. I like it. I do. I don't know if I want to take on that much commitment on even a star player. I really don't know. That's a lot of years. It's a lot of money. The Penguins were already pretty racked up in terms of money with Erik Karlsson for the next couple seasons.
Mm-hmm.
And for what it's worth, Ryan Graves for the next couple of seasons.
Yeah.
It's a tough one. It's a really tough one. I just doubt it. I think at the end of the day, I just look at Pettersson's deal and kind of go, Elias Pettersson's deal and go, not quite.
Yeah, it's hard to make that fit for the Penguins. That's why I think a veteran player would have to be included just to make the salary cap work. Because, I mean, Marcus Pettersson is about $4 million. Drew O'Connor is about like $1.5 million, if I'm not mistaken. The veteran player is just going to be to kind of balance the books here. I mean, maybe it's a Nola Chari, and then they end up buying him out up in Vancouver at the end of the season because you need to get that $2 million into this trade. But if they could make it work, the only thing I'll say is this. I tend to agree with you, Horwat, that $11 million is a lot to take on for a guy who's currently having a bad year. I understand that, outside circumstances might be affecting what's happening on the ice, but that is a huge risk. And I'm not averse to taking risks, but you have one shot. That's your Rangers signing Artemi Panarin move, right? If you're trying to emulate what the Rangers did and their shotgun rebuild, if you're trying to emulate what the LA Kings did, the Rangers method all circled around the one big free agent signing where they paid Artemi Panarin a lot of money to come in and be that dude. That's what Elias Pettersson would be doing for the Pittsburgh Penguins. That one move that catapults you from, all right, we're floundering, we're trying to shotgun rebuild, we're getting pieces to, all right, you're back in the top 3 in the division, and you're back into being a perennial playoff team because of this player. Do you take that shot on Elias Pettersson? I don't know. This is a guy that had 360-plus point seasons early in his career, had an 89-point season last year, had a 102-point season 2 years ago as a perennial 30-goal scorer. He immediately adds that huge bona fide goal-scoring force back into your top 6, that replacement for Jake Gensel that everybody's been clamoring for. But do you take that on Elias Pettersson and do you make that move now? Is it the time to make that move? Sometimes these players only, become available every once in a while, and he might not even be available because the Canucks might choose to keep him, the 26-year-old, over the 31-year-old and JT Miller, who he is reportedly having a squabble with. But if Pettersson is on the block and if Vancouver is open to this move, I still look at it and say, man, you better be sure that Pettersson's going to be a fit, because you cannot have a repeat of the Riley Smith, where he was great for the Stanley Cup team. He came over here, should have fit all intents and purposes, but it just didn't work out. You cannot make that miss with Elias Pettersson. We've seen that happen time and time again, maybe not to this extent, because they've never had to go out and get a star like this, but it didn't work for Derek Brassard. It didn't work for David Perron. It didn't work for Riley Smith. It needs to work for Pettersson if you're going to pay all this, because that pick is probably going to be up in the second or first round.
That list can go on too. Alex Galchenyuk could be thrown in there.
Alex Galchenyuk, yeah.
And Elias Pettersson, maybe it's just a side effect of Vancouver and of the market. I mean, they looked at his 103-point season last year and went, not good enough. I mean, he had a slow start, but damn, he finished with quite a few points there. They looked at, like, again, that may just be a side effect of the market. That's Vancouver going, he had a slow start, his year sucks. Cannon. 103 points, though, is nothing to scoff at, clearly. But, I mean, this year is not going well. Again, like you mentioned, a little rift might be a reason for that. But even if, I've seen other angles of it going, well, if there's a rift, don't you think they would both be elevating their game, trying to prove they're the better one? It's not working. Something's not working in Vancouver. So, you know, whether they decide to trade Elias Pettersson, who, again, like 29 points in 37 games isn't terrible. When you're making 11.6, that's not good. Yeah. Same goes for JT Miller, who has 29 in 33 games played, only 8 goals. I mean, everything that we said about JT Miller a couple years ago when Ron Hextall was the GM, copy paste still applies here. I don't want that on the Penguins just because that contract, he's older. Mm-hmm. And sure, he ended up really, you know, putting in great work last year. He is the one that had 103 points last season, I think.
Yeah, 89 for Pettersson last year.
Yeah, Pettersson's coming off a 104-point season. I think it was 2 years ago. 102 2 years ago. Still, all the same things count. He had 89 last year. But when it comes to Miller, I still don't want that for the Penguins either. Just all the reasons I said. He's older, that contract's an anchor, and who knows if this production continues. Again, as we're seeing, it's really not. It could. Again, we'll see if he goes somewhere else with a rift, or without a rift. But I think this is a situation the Penguins should just overall avoid. Mm-hmm. I get it's Jim Rutherford, and I'm sure he's called and seen. I'm sure a lot of teams have called. Again, you are, as a GM, are not doing your job if you are not giving Rutherford a call to see what's going on. Just period, no matter what team you are, seeing what the situation is and what you might be able to get Pettersson for. But overall, for the Penguins, at least, and for Kyle Dubas, that should be as far as it goes. Just a call, seeing what the offer would be. Thanks for your time. Christmas card will be in the mail. Click.